it's a positive, I would call it sugar that you're tossing out, because even in it's self-serving in that if you've got troubles, if you smile, it helps you as well as others. So it's a two-way street on smiling. Sometimes they said, even on the worst time, you're smiling at those nurses, and I said, well, yeah. So it might be an affliction, and this is the first time I thought it was a positive by anybody in a conversation. So thank you.
Well, it's certainly a positive, and I would say a superpower. But before I go further, anyone else have any experiences that they have had with smiling, or your view on smiling?
Good morning, Lawrence and crew.
Good morning.
This is Jace. I don't have my teeth in again, so I don't want to put my picture on. So
Oh, come on.
see, you won't be able to see my no smile with no teeth. The reason why I just want to say that yesterday I went to Deadwood and I had to get my vehicle tags, and so I'm walking. Of course, you have to wear masks there in Deadwood, so I'm walking through with my son, and we're talking through our masks, and there was a lady there that was working, a maintenance worker there, a custodian, and she looked at us kind of apprehensively, and I looked towards her and I said, I pointed to my face and I said, you can't see it, but I'm smiling at you. And I put my hand up and waved to her, and so she had the biggest smile on her face. And so, but I had to let her know that I was smiling, because she couldn't see it through my mask. But and so I thought that was kind of weird. And then today we're talking about smiling, so I think that's good. I had a premonition we were going to talk about smiling today. No, I'm just kidding.
Good.
Morning.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, Jace, smiling is actually more than the mouth. In fact, one of the interesting things is when there's this, let's say, practice of reading photographs. Okay, so it's a kind of forensics, to try to figure out what was happening in a scene or something like that. And one of the things that's noticed is that you can tell the difference when somebody's doing what's referred to sometimes as a photographic smile. In other words, somebody says smile and you're like that, and a genuine smile where they are feeling something that causes them to smile. And it's because there's a whole bunch of muscles that go into the smile, and they're not just about the lips. Those are the ones that are, let's say, most pronounced. But a full smile is like in the whole face. It takes up the whole face, from the forehead to the chin. And all of those muscles are activated. And one of the interesting things is about the human psychology is that from birth, we're programmed to read the smiles of other humans, right from birth. So it becomes part of something you do and you react to, and it's part of the autonomic nervous system. You don't have to go to school to study that. You don't have to take a lecture or watch a movie or anything like that. It's programmed into you from birth. You can read smiles. Well, actually, you read faces, but the smile is one of the things that is more pronounced than most other things, and we get correct as humans more than others. And when I say get correct, there's more subtlety into a smile than just smiling or not smiling. Like what kind of smile is, like even like a sneer or something like that. But we read those things, and we read emotions and the feelings of others through their faces and the different kinds of smiles, we're pretty good at reading. But how about others? Anybody else want to say anything about smiles before we?
Just quickly, I love them. You know, it's been, I've noticed more than ever with the masks over the last year that you can really see it in the eyes and other parts of the faces too. And, you know, that's, while it's reassuring, I still do just miss, especially living in an area where, you know, people don't typically say hello, but you can quickly share a smile when you're crossing paths with people on the sidewalk, and it's a nice feeling. And you know, just don't quite get the whole energy. So I'm really looking forward to days ahead when you can see just strangers on the street and smile to them and share that energy with them.
Exactly. And I would say that it's a very good indication of how we should pay attention to the smiles all the time, and it's how we don't miss something until we don't have it. You know, we don't realize how important the thing is until, you know, like, oh, we can't, you know, we can't see that person's smile, you know. But I think it brings to the forefront, oh, I did need that. It was something that it just sort of went to the background, but it was important to me. You know, it's kind of like when you take in air, you don't really think about it, but if you don't have it, then suddenly it becomes really important. You know? You notice right away. Okay, so that said, let's look at some of the other superpowers that we might have or that we do have. Anybody recognize any other superpower other than smiling that you have? Something that gives you in life some kind of competitive advantage, so to speak.
I don't know that I have it, but I do think a superpower is the ability to listen. I call active listening, and concentrating very much so of what is being said by others. I think that's something I try to strive more and more on as time goes by.
Mm-hmm. Before you go, Lee, can you tell us a little bit about how that superpower works?
It communicating that you truly care. They're not looking at somebody else while you're talking and ready to move on with the conversation with somebody else. They're more apt to tell you things pretty private sometime, and maybe I think I'm delving too deeply when I respond with a question. But sometimes that is helpful to others. Not necessarily giving advice, but just that you provide an ear. I think that would be more than anything.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. I mean, and I've seen that, and I think others probably see that too. You know, especially the part that you were talking about caring. You know, when it's probably one of the things that is really important to people is to feel like they are cared about and they are paid attention to. That I see you. You know, I acknowledge you, and I think that's very important to people. So when we do listen to them, it gives them a certain sense of connection. I've noticed something because I haven't always understood that. In fact, I would say, looking at my lifespan, is rather recently that I've understood that how important it is for people to be listened to. And now that I started paying attention to it, what I notice is when people come with a certain level of anxiety about something, even if it's, let's say, controversial between the two of you, a point of contention between the two of you, if they can feel listened to, it changes their whole perspective and how they engage with you. You know, when you can show genuine interest in listening to them and how do you feel? You know, let me know, tell me a little bit more about that, you know. Uh, and one of the benefits to me is I actually learn stuff when people, when I start listening, listening to people. And it's very beneficial. And when I can relax and just listen to like, what does this sister have to say? You know, or what is she trying to say? You know, is there any way that I can get more clarity for myself or help them to develop more clarity, because the way they're explaining it to me gives me a sense that they haven't really figured this out and it's working on the fly. So what can I ask them? How can I engage with them that helps them understand what it is that they're trying to say? And then they can give it back to me. You know, then okay, now I get what you're saying, because before it really wasn't coming over that clear. You know? So I would say listening is definitely a superpower that's mutually beneficial. Anyone else, your own superpower, another superpower that you discovered that you have or would like to have?
I have a question on listening and the
Mm.
people, when people feel validated, to use that word, and they keep talking. Can you explain? Because I know you could. Am I right in thinking that because it goes from the brain and you can write it down, and then when you read it, then it gets back in there, and then when they're talking, it bypasses that whole thing.
Say that again.
See, I have to be it when a person is comfortable and they have that stream of consciousness going because you're actually actively listening, like Leanne. Yeah, that was perfect. And they get to the point where they're listening to themselves, because when you talk to people, it's in your brain, comes out to your hand, and you write it down, and then you say it. The saying of it puts it back in the brain. I don't know what that theory is supposed to be, but I remember that from a long time ago. And when you're talking to someone, you're still listening, so you just bypass the writing it down and reading it. Am I explaining what I think I'm saying?
Uh, uh, I'm not quite sure, because I hear a couple of things. One is the relationship between writing something down and it sticking,
Right.
staying there,
Mm-hmm.
and then just listening to them. And there was a part somehow that I think I'm missing.
Because when they're speaking, they're regurgitating from their brain,
Mm,
and they're also hearing.
mm. Oh, I see. What is the value of the person who, when the person's saying something when they are being listened to,
Right.
they're actually maybe listening to themselves for the first time.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That was hard to explain.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That often happens, and I think at least that's the way I experience it. And I've learned to value that, because I've learned that sometimes when people tell you something, or when they're saying something, or when they're even just feeling something, it's not it's not a very well formed thought. They have not really thought it out. But to me, I've explained it by, okay, when you say it out loud to someone else, especially when you have a sense that they're actually listening, it puts a certain responsibility on what you're saying. You know, it's like you have to be responsible for that because now it's coming out. And when someone gives you feedback, like, what did you mean by that? You can see, you can just see in their face, it's cranking around for the first time because now, rather than, let's say, something they're just regurgitating, this is particularly true in politics, by the way. Okay, you ask someone, you say, the way you're saying it, I'm not getting it. You know, can you say that in another way? Or what did you mean by this point? Suddenly they have to get off of the party line and actually say something, not just sort of like say something back as a knee-jerk response, because you've asked them to, okay, well, that part I didn't get. I'm not sure how you're connecting, how this part works with that part, you know? If you say you feel this way, but a few minutes ago you said you felt this way, help me understand how those two things come together, right? When you get that kind of listening, I think it does challenge a person to like, it's mandatory almost that they examine it. And even if they come up with something off the wall, they hear themselves saying it, you know, and then things can change because now you hear yourself saying something that you don't really think that if somebody told you that, you'd think this guy's off his rocker, you know, but you hear yourself saying it. So now you kind of have to take responsibility for it. And especially when you repeat that back to them, you know, just say, did I hear you say, you know? So I think that yeah, it helps people to sort of bring into focus what they feel. You know, not just in politics, of course, just, you know, just personally, especially when you're having like two friends are discussing something, you know, it's helpful that one, that they care. That's a big part of it. And then because you're getting not acknowledgement, but then two, that now I got a kind of little play box here, a little workshop. I can workshop this idea. You know, I can play around with it and it's safe. You know, I think that's important.
I'd just like to add, I don't know if this is quite on topic, but it makes me think of a few people in my life, both professionally and personally, who I try to listen to, but I know that if I give them the opportunity, they're going to go and go and go and talk. And particularly with the professional relationships, I'm like, ooh, do I really want to call this person this afternoon? Because this is going to be, the rest of my day is done unless I personally feel like I'm rudely cutting them off and say, all right, I've on to the next thing. I'm a little bit more adventurous with my friends and enjoy that sort of just shut up and listen type of mentality. And so I don't want to digress too much, but to me, it's a challenge of listening, but you know, challenge to make you better.
Yes, very well put. Uh, one of the things that could happen in the case, depending on the person, is you could say, "Do you mind if I record this?" that that tends to make a whole different kind of conversation. Maybe not one that's as honest, but often more reflective. You know, when you say, "Oh, do you mind if I record this?" Because sometimes you bring up real points, and I need to go back sometimes. How about anyone else have any superpowers that they've discovered?
I guess along those same lines, and I was just thinking of it this morning as I was walking the dog. And I hope this is right, but patience and you know how it's, there's not a lot that can't be more properly addressed if you just act with patience but I don't know if that qualifies as a superpower in this context.
Well, it can be a superpower if you make it a superpower, you know. So maybe I should step back and say, and define what I'm talking about when I say a superpower. So a superpower in this context is a power that you have to manipulate your environment or to operate inside of your environment that is not readily apparent. You don't really recognize the power. It's like if you have if you have a power tool, and it's a dangerous power tool, like a power saw, they will often have a kill switch, right? And some of them go so far as to have a device that if the saw is spinning and you touch it with even like a hot dog, it'll stop immediately. Okay, that's a superpower because it's something that goes beyond the power of the saw, and it cancels all things, or it enhances something. So let's say if you could fly, that would be a superpower because despite gravity, the normal situation on this planet, you are able to do something that is outside of what you would normally what you think you would normally be able to do. So in the case, for example, like smiling, most people don't know that it's a superpower. They don't know that they actually can manipulate the thought and the reaction, the autonomic reaction of another person simply by a smile. As was shown in the video, or was talked about in the video, if you smile, the other person, in order to have a frown, they have to consciously work at it. They have to put energy into it because the brain is already primed that if I smile at you, you smile back at me. It's already primed for that, or at least it changes your feeling. Okay, so that I think is an example of a superpower. So patience, listening, right? Because what have you done if when you have basically, as one person put it, smiling is a form of mind control, because you can make the person, just by what you do, you can change their mind, right? You can change their feeling about something, change their feeling about you. I think listening, it changes. So you're not inside their head, but you're able to change their point of view simply because you listened. And it's a low energy output, right? You don't have to put a lot of energy into just saying, you know, uh, you can be listening critically, meaning not as criticism, but critically like, what is in fact the underlying thing here, or does that make sense? You could be listening critically, or you could just be listening passively. Just say, okay, I'm just taking in what you're saying without judgment, without really much thought, just acknowledging that you're saying it and kind of, and so that's a thing, like kind of like, I don't know, watching an action movie or something, it's like people are, it looks like they're fighting, but actually it's more like dancing because nobody in a real fight that wouldn't happen, but so you can just passively watch it, or passively listen, or you can actively listen, So to me, that's a kind of a superpower. So I would say patience, yes, certainly. Can you expand a little bit on that, Paul, like how that would work?
Well, if you'll be patient with me for a minute while I put my I guess the first thing that jumps out to me is sort of when somebody has an anxious or urgent reaction to something, a non-emergency type of reaction, and if you can kind of take, whether it's a few deep breaths and clear your head and think about it and try to take a positive step towards whatever you're reaching, you know, solving a problem, or if you're, you know, waiting, I don't know. I'm talking before I'm thinking here, so I better pause and see if anyone reacts to any of that, or if someone else has a better better thoughts or more clear thoughts.
Patience could be with a lot of things. There's certain times there'll be certain different types of patience. So I agree with you with that word. There are many variables about patience with a child is different than patience with traffic or things like that. I was going to bring something else on. Modeling with complete humility. And I have a prime example of someone that I know very well that sees things. I mean, this person is always aware of his surroundings and can see things that people that need help in a grocery store with people reaching for things, or parents with children that they can't get in there, or getting in the car and getting their groceries ready. Neighbors that are cleaning a garage and he goes over and offers help all over the place. Seeing the garbage man coming and getting the things out, 3 of them to him so he can make it easier for him. Someone is at a shooting match and he lends a gun and he says, well, why don't you use it for the next match too while you're at it? And at the man's funeral, it was mentioned there was somebody that let him use his gun his whole life. Doesn't tell a soul. And I found out about it. Of course, it's my husband. When I first met him after 50 years and I was limping from a tennis injury, he asked to carry my purse to get in the vehicle to go to our first stop. You just don't have that. Always opened up doors. Always. But you see, I knew that when he was a man, a boy of 14 years old. And I remembered that now. Always was there with fellow students. If they didn't have something, if they forgot their book, here, you can use this one. A pen, a pencil, whatever. Needed a ride somewhere. So I'd say modeling a truly caring behavior helps others. And he had patience. If something was, he never had the anger. If something really bad happened, he said, well, maybe they're having a bad day today. It's always, I always said, finding excuse for him. But I think modeling has something to do with it too. If you admire somebody for something, you might think about how that person is.
Okay, so I heard you say modeling, and then it sounded like you actually expanded on that into random acts of kindness, you know, to where you know, and I would consider that certainly a superpower. You know, it's like, and one of the reasons I think random acts of kindness is a superpower is because it influences not just the person that receives that act of kindness, but it radiates all around to other people who just witness it. It changes their mind in a way that they can't help themselves, even if they still are kind of a curmudgeon. But you start to chip away at that curmudgeonness, you know, because it makes it harder for them to say nobody does anything except for themselves, you know, which is the thing they often cloak themselves in it. Everybody's in it for themselves. It's only about themselves. So why not me too, you know, which is often just an excuse, you know, but still it weakens that narrative that they are telling themselves that allows them to be divorced from other people. It weakens that narrative. Um, so I think random act of kindness is one of those um, superpowers. Anyone else? Another superpower that you have? Paul, we didn't finish with yours, I don't think. You know, okay, we're having patience with your patience.
I'll say that there's something that Lee said right at the beginning, that resonated, and just that patience comes up so often, and I think that really kind of got to the root of what I was bringing up, and just that there's throughout every day and every, there's just patience is so often the right decision, to help diffuse a situation, to help bring to the surface the right answer or the right comment or the right person, to allow things to kind of naturally resolve themselves. And I don't mean this always in the context of conflict, although that's kind of implied, I think, with what I just said. But I just really, that comment, Lee, really helped me, maybe not even narrow down what I'm thinking, but I can't help but notice patience in all of my life, especially when I haven't been patient and I look back on something and I think, God, if I just would have waited 5 more minutes, or if I would have waited 5 more months, something else would have come about. And so I appreciated that, Lee. Thanks for adding to that.
I think patience can be understood as the ability to use the universal lever of time, because time is one of the major universal levers, and if we can use that, which kind of implies being able to project into the future accurately, which, that's a whole other discussion, but still, the ability to use that can be a superpower. Anyone else, a superpower that you have or would like to have? You recognize it as a superpower. You may or may not have it. Anyone else? Well, there are quite a few out there. There are lots of things that we can use.
Humor.
Humor. Thank you. Thank you.
That's my superpower.
I was just gonna speak up and say I know somebody's, and that's you, Naima. You always make me smile.
And I love it.
Yeah. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, Naima? How humor works as a superpower?
One of the things that I grew up with was the knowing that there are all kinds of different people but there's only one God, and God will be really happy if you treat everybody really, really well.
Mm,
And I took that to heart.
mm,
And one of the things that happened was an attack. It wasn't a physical, it wasn't an emotional, it was an attack on me as being, I don't remember what it was, bubble butt or something like that. And I said, he yelled down the hall, bubble butt. And I went, where? And everybody fell out laughing. I
mhm,
said, that was pretty cool. So I developed the ability to read a room, so to say, or
mhm,
utilize humor to read the room to see who did or didn't, or someone went, yeah, I'm not the one, or started on their phone.
mhm,
And it is developed 72 years worth of understanding that I had the ability to have people smile and to have them laugh at me, themselves, the world, and know that it's all good. So
mm,
that's the way that I grew up using humor.
mm. Excellent, excellent example. And I think it speaks to being able to deflect hostility,
Oh yes,
you know?
utilizing that. It's almost like the Tai Chi or however,
Mhm.
whatever, and it's coming, and you just say, "Oh, there you went. How
Yeah,
you doing?"
yeah, yeah, yeah. What are some of the ways that a person can um, develop a sense of humor?
Now that is a very good question. That's a very good question. I don't I don't have an answer for that. Um, just knowing that humor, it works. It is, and it can be a one-on-one. It can be a whole room. It just is. But I don't know how you develop a sense of humor. That's I'll have to think about that. I'll get back to you on it. Be patient.
Yeah, patience, patience, patience. But often, that said, often humor is so timely, you know? Timing in humor, when people are being comedians, one of the most important things to develop is timing. You know, how much of a pause? When is it too late to have that perfect comeback? But another half a second later, and it's a whole different meaning, you know? So if I were to say, how does a person develop a sense of humor? I would start by being able, practicing stepping back. So that gets to your issue of patience. Wait for a while and start looking for the comedy in the situation. And in every tragedy, there is comedy. And in almost every comedy, there's some level of tragedy in it. You know, it's kind of like that Greek thing of like turning that smile upside down. You know, it's the same mask or something like that, and you just turn that part upside down, because there's both. There's a tragedy often. You know, I don't know every situation, but quite often there is, and there is humor in tragedy, and sometimes that provides the greatest amount of opportunity. I mean, if you listen to comedians, much of the ones that are major comedians, most of what they're talking about are really tragic, horrible situations. But it's like being able to see the absurdity, you know, because that's one of the baselines for humor too, is absurdity, you know, to be able to see the absurdity in so many situations and then recognize that we're kind of in an infinite loop, you know, going to, and maybe more than a loop, it's a spiral because it's just going round, but it's going in some place we don't know or we can't control. So when you can take that point of view, or at least develop the ability to like look at it from that other angle of, one, this is not going to go forever because nothing does, but what does it mean? And how does it connect to something else? And then you can start to see, it looks like a thing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a thing, especially when you think it's about you. And then you can step outside like you did with the bubble butt thing, you know, and you can just move just a little bit to the side and just pretend for the moment that it has nothing to do with you. It's amazing how then you're much better able to see the humor in it because it doesn't feel as threatening, you know. Does that make any sense?
It does, because some of what I do has to do, when you said threatening, it does have to do with command and control of the situation in a loving fashion. You know, if someone, I'll use 9/11 as an example. Someone went to step to me and was very upset, and I had some groceries, and I just basically said, "Hold on, wait a minute, no, no, no," which stopped him. And it was, "I'm gonna put my groceries down, and then once I get my groceries down safely, I'm about to engage with you." Well, I'm gonna, no, 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 wait, 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 wait. Let me put my groceries down because I'm gonna kick you. We can't say that here.
Yeah.
But it gave me time to make sure that I was able to secure whatever it is that I needed at that time. And so using humor or that comeback back and forth, that dance, in a lot of cases is about control of the situation, and the understanding that you really don't want to hurt anybody, not unless they mess with your groceries.
that hey, that deserves a response.
For real. And the price they were then, oh my goodness.
My groceries, no, 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 no. That you can step on my blue suede shoes before you mess with groceries.
There you go. For real though.
Well, great. Well, we're coming up on the end of our hour, and I hope that I have at least opened a channel to thinking about your superpowers and looking around for your superpowers, because so many times we neglect the power we have, and then we feel powerless because we don't recognize the power that we have, or we don't use it. So the more we can recognize and use our power, actually, the more power we get. The more we use it, the more we get, because we become more adept at using our powers. Next week, oh, by the way, hello, Lynn.
Hey,
And
sorry
just,
I'm late. I had a VA appointment. I'm in Sioux Falls right now.
well, don't come next week.
Oh yeah, I will. I
Okay.
will say hi to everybody. Things been
Okay.
busy, but it's all good. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you bet. And you too, Jessica. Next week, we're going to be talking about the paradox of intolerance. Okay. And we're going to talk about what that is. So come back and you'll find out if you don't know yet. And how does it have what implications it has for our freedom of speech and freedom in general, you know? So come back next week and discover the paradox of intolerance. Okay, well, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.